Welcome to section 4.2. In this video, we are going to be doing a continuation of order of operations, or PEMDAS. So in the last section, we only dealt with situations where we just worked from left to right. So whenever we just had addition and subtraction on its own in an entire expression, we just work from left to right. And same thing, when we just have multiplication and division in an entire expression, we just work left from right. But now things change once we have things like subtraction and multiplication together, or subtraction, subtraction, division, and multiplication. So things like that change, and we now have to be careful about our steps. So I'm gonna write down PEMDAS, the acronym, PEMDAS. So in this video, we are going to be worrying about everything but P, which P is parentheses. I actually forgot how to spell parentheses. I encourage you to look up the video. Or actually, no, there you go. Spelling check. Very thankful for you. Ooh, it makes my handwriting look so... Okay, anyways, so we have E. So I'm gonna, which is exponents. M is multiplication. D is division. A is addition. And S is subtraction. There you go. So, I always spell exponents wrong now. Okay. Oh, wait, no, maybe I didn't. It just didn't read the E. Anyways, okay. So, looking at this first example, so in this first part, we're just going to be worried about MDAS. We're not going to worry about exponents. We will in this part, but for now, let's just focus on MDAS, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So we always want to do multiplication and division first before we focus on adding or subtracting anything. And in this case, we have multiplication, so we are going to do 2 times 3 first before we do any subtracting. So we have 7 minus, and the 2 times 3 is 6. And then from here, now that we just have 7 minus 6, we can just subtract the 2. 7 minus 6 is 1. And then looking at our next example, example 10, I encourage you to pause the video and just give it a try. And assuming you've given this a try, let's work through it. So remember, we always want to do multiplication and division first if we have it in the expression, and we do. So what we're going to do is we have actually more than one fact where we have to do division and or multiplication. So we're going to start from the left to right from this division problem. So we're going to have 18 minus, and then we're going to do 3 divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then we're going to carry along this 6. And then from here, we solve multiplication. So we're going to do 1 times 6. So we're going to have 18 minus 1 times 6 is 6. And then 18 minus 6 is 12. And that is our final answer. Looking at example 11, I encourage you to pause the video and work through it. And now let's work through it together. So we want to do multiplication and division first. So let's start with this here. So we have 8 divided. Well, one thing I will say is this negative sign. Be careful, because this negative sign is kind of like, we can think of it as like on the outside of this fraction. Because this fraction is kind of being multiplied by a negative 1. So we really have just 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And then we're going to carry along that negative. So we get negative 4. And we're going to do this minus negative 3 plus 4 times 5. And now we have this multiplication here. So, and we don't have any more division or multiplication because we're working from left to right, remember? So we hit this multiplication, and now we have to solve it. So 4 times 5 is 20. So we get negative 4 minus negative 3 plus 20. And then from here, because all we have left is addition and subtraction, we just now work from left to right. So we're going to do 4 minus negative 3. And because we're subtracting a negative, we're going to say chop, chop. And it becomes negative 4 plus 3. And negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. And then we're going to add that 20. Negative 1 plus 20 is 19. Now looking at our next example, I encourage you to pause the video and work through it. And now let's work through it together. So remember, in the previous section, we had an example like this, where we had a numerator and a denominator. So what we want to do in this case is we want to fully simplify the numerator, or the top part of this fraction, and we fully want to simplify the denominator, or the bottom part of the fraction first, before we divide this whole thing. So let's start off with this top section here. So we have negative 3 minus 2 times 10. So because we have this multiplication here, we have to deal with that first. So let's do 2 times 10 first. And let's look at the denominator here. Let's see what we have. So we have 25 minus 43 times negative 1. So since we have the multiplication, we also have to do the operation first. So we're going to be left with negative 3 minus, and then 2 times 10 is 20. And then we're going to put that all over 25 minus, and then 43 times negative 1 is going to be negative 43, because the positive times a negative is a negative. So now, moving forward, all we have is subtraction. So let's simplify the numerator and denominator. So negative 3 minus 20 is negative 23. And then 25 minus negative 43, this becomes a positive because we're subtracting a negative. Because we're subtracting a negative, we're going to now say 25 plus 43, which ends up happening being 68. And that is our final answer. Okay, so now that we got a little bit of a hold on these steps, we're now bring in some exponents. So the same rules still apply, except for now when we deal with exponents, we want to do the exponents first before we do any multiplication, division, or addition, or subtraction. We want to take care of those exponents first. So with that being said, let's work through our first example with exponents. So we have 4 squared plus 3 squared. So to first simplify this, we're going to simplify these numbers with these exponents first. So remember, when something is squared, that means we're going to multiply that number by itself 2 times. So we're going to have 4 times 4, because that's what 4 squared is. And then we're going to have 2 cubed, or 2 to the 3rd power. So we're going to multiply 2 by itself 3 times. Not times 3, times 2. So this is what we should have. And now let's simplify this. So 4 times 4 is 16. And then we're going to add that to 2 times 2, which is 4. And then 4 times 2 is 8. So 16 plus 8 is 24. And that is our final answer. Looking at our next example, I encourage you to pause the video. Try this one on your own. Now let's work through it together. So we have 7 minus 6 squared minus 1 cubed. So let's first take care of our numbers with the exponents. So we have 7 minus 6 squared is 6 times 6. And then we have 1 cubed, which is 1 times 1 times 1. So 7 minus 6 times 6 is 36. And then 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So 7 minus 36. 7 minus 36, that's going to be negative 29. And then negative 29 minus 1 equals negative 30. Now looking at our last two examples of this section, I encourage you to pause the video and work through these two examples on your own. And let's work through it together. So for example 15, we have 36 over 2 to the first power times negative 2 squared divided by 5 to the first power. So we got a lot going on here in this example. And we also have something that's new that we might have not seen before, and that is something to the first power. Now, I encourage you to not overthink this, because this is actually anything to the first power isn't anything too complicated. So we know that an exponent means how many times you have to multiply a number to itself. But if we just have something to the first power, we just simply have 2. Because if we just have 2 to the first power, we can't multiply anything to it, because it's just 2. You can't multiply 2 times 2 because it's to the first power. So that just means that we just get 2 on its own. You can't multiply anything by 2. So let me actually put this. Let me actually do 36 divided by 2. So then negative 2 squared, that's negative 2 times negative 2. And then divided by 5 to the first power. Well, like I mentioned before, anything to the first power just means that we're just left with whatever that number is, because we can't multiply anything by 5 because it's just to the first power. So we're just left with the number. So now let's simplify. Let's do 36. Well, actually, never mind. We want to simplify this exponent first, so be careful with that. So we have 36 divided by 2, and then negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, because a negative times a negative is positive. So 36 divided by 2, that is going to be 18. So we have 18 times 4 divided by 5. And because we're only dealing with multiplication and division, we're just going to work from left to right. So 18 times 4 is 72. So we're going to bring this up here. So we have 72, and then we're going to divide that by 5. And 72 divided by 5 is not a whole number. So we're just going to leave it as a fraction. 72 divided by 5. That's our answer. And you can divide 72 divided by 5 in a calculator if you want and get a decimal. You can also do that if you would like. But I'm just going to keep things in a fraction. Okay. So looking at example 16 now. Remember, we want to simplify our exponents first. So let's simplify this negative 3 cubed, this 8 squared, and this negative 4 squared. So negative 3 cubed, that is negative 3, times negative 3, times negative 3. And then we're going to add the 8 squared, which is 8 times 8. And then we're going to divide that all by 3 minus negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4. So negative 3 times negative 3, that's going to become positive 9. And positive 9 times negative 23 is negative 27. And then we're going to add 8 times 8, which is 64. We're going to divide that by 3 minus, and the negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. So we're going to do 3 minus 16. And then now, let's just simplify the numerator and denominator. So negative 27 plus 64 is 37. And that's going to be over 3 minus 16, which is negative 13. And that is your final answer.